Hey, what's up? It's Jack, and today I'd like to talk about this really important memo tip that people don't really talk about, including myself not too long ago. But recently I'm recommending advice related to, I guess, this aspect of memo to a lot of the YouTube comments I get asking for memo tips. Recently did like an Instagram Q&A where I answered I don't know, almost 100 questions. So I mentioned that quite a bit there. And also in my coaching recently too, quite a lot. I think, there was this one student I had where I pretty much had the entire lesson kind of focused around it, even though he was around 3-minute range already. And that thing is what I like to call tracing. So I think the simple definition is maybe a little bit convoluted, which is why, it might be kind of overlooked, which is that it's kind of like memo, but without the actual kind of memo part, if that makes any sense. It probably doesn't, right? A better example, way for me to do this is to get you to actually put this to the test by doing an exercise that focuses just on it. So just get out a cube and do some kind of scramble on it. And what I want you to do is to go through memo as quick as possible, but without actually trying to retain your memo. So just do full audio, or just go through the letters or something. See how fast you can go. And if you kind of screw up, which seems to happen a lot for beginners, it's and intermediate solvers too, from what I've seen, just kind of go back and just fix it and just keep going until you finish it. Essentially it plays a big role in your memo in that, first of all, it's the upper limit to how fast you can memo. So if your tracing speed is 40 seconds, then you can't physically go memo faster than 40 seconds. It's the upper limit. Obviously, since a lot of you are reviewing your memo as well, it's going to be a lot slower than 40 seconds, for instance. But it plays a big role in defining how fast you can go through memo. Because I think the memo part of memo are making absolutely no sense, right? It's kind of commonly when we think of memo, we think of maybe converting letters like CT into cat, that kind of memo. So kind of the encoding stage of memo. I guess you can put it that way. But anyway, I just wanted to go through some, I guess, tips on how you can improve this aspect of your memo, because it tends to be overlooked, and I'm starting to realize that people can gain a lot of time in this area. If you've seen my newsletter on this, which I released yesterday or so, you're going to see me kind of repeat a lot of things, but it kind of deserves its own video because I've kind of realized this is a really big deal. So so first of all, make sure you trace through everything correctly the first time around. Or at least make an attempt to go for 100%. Pretty much every beginner I've seen has some kind of issue in regards to this. Also intermediate solvers too, in which they have trouble, I guess, maybe keeping track of what they've gone through, or finding an odd flipped edge, or maybe an extra cycle that they're missing. Also, sometimes during initial memo, they just kind of mistrace and go to the wrong sticker. I've seen quite a bit of that. So trying to put emphasis on getting through things the first time around correctly, I think that'd be ideal. Because if you kind of screw things up, then try to redo it, that's a lot slower than trying to memorize things correctly the first time around. So be sure to do that. The second piece of advice is to have a way to figure out your letters on your cube somewhat quickly, and have a system for doing so. What I generally recommend for beginners is to memorize the first letter of each face. So in the case of SPEFs, you have A, for edges anyway, and corners, A, E, I, M, Q, U. It's kind of like the vowels of the alphabet, but you replace O with M, Q instead. And you can kind of use that as a reference and go clockwise around from that. Obviously, I guess going to the letters directly, I think takes a bit of practice. You could maybe do a second reference letter, so instead of just A, you can have C maybe as well. But I think over time with practice, I think people can kind of gradually internalize that. The other bit of advice, I think this is probably maybe especially important for edges, because there are a bunch more edges than corners, and I'm noticing people missing stuff a lot more in edges compared to corners. And this kind of comes down to keeping track of what you've covered and what you have left to cover, pretty much. So for edges, I generally recommend pretty much all levels to kind of use fingers to keep track of pieces. I know some people only keep track of just the pieces. I think more commonly, perhaps, let me know how you keep track of pieces in the comments below. They keep track of the stickers on the pieces. I think for the sake of tracing accuracy, this is probably better. because it kind of makes sure that you don't go to the other sticker on the piece, which could kind of screw you up. And this can happen not just in initial memo, but also during the review phase as well. So I'd recommend doing that. The other, I guess, method that I didn't really talk about, and I admittedly kind of dismissed before, was, so it isn't exactly, I don't think of it exactly like this kind of formula, but it kind of does stem from it. So I'll go from there first. So some of you might have seen like some kind of like math formula thing for figuring out whether you have like another cycle or whatnot left. Keeping in mind that I'm kind of thinking of like flips and twists as like a visual kind of thing, so I don't use letters for those. And it goes like that, this. So corners, it'd be 7 minus, gosh, I can't maths at all. I'll just put it up on the screen because I don't even remember it, and I'm bad at maths. Essentially, this kind of, I guess, intuitive like sense, I guess, fast blindfolded solvers develop who can like, solve, memorize a cube in like 10 seconds. What they're doing, I think, is technically an extension of these formulas, but we don't really think of it as such. But for instance, for edges, for the way I do parity, like I always have like 12 I always have the even number of targets for edges. So also commonly for both corners and edges, like I kind of expect to see one cycle break. Those kind of stuff you don't really see in a formula, but through doing a lot of solve, you kind of realize some, I guess, combinations are more common than others. And going back to what I mentioned before, so for example, if I don't see any cycle breaks in edges, I know that there must be one solved edge or flipped edge remaining. Like no matter what, it's like guaranteed. So looking out for those kinds of rules is kind of important. Also, if I see one cycle break, then I know I'm getting 12 targets. If I get either maybe 10 or 14, then, well, if I get like 10 and there's like one cycle break, then I know like there must be something else, like some solved and flipped edges, which I'll probably see throughout the way. So those kinds of things, I think fast blinders pick up along the way, so they don't really have to think about that formula so much, to the extent that I'm not confident in saying what that formula is without, I guess, editing it afterwards and chucking it on. So yeah, that's probably a bit more complicated, which is why I kind of recommend like the whole thing. So yeah, it ended up being a slight ramble. I hope people are cool with that. But yeah, in essence, if you're having trouble with your memo, for example, already have like a letter pair list, you're kind of cool with like, I guess, recalling what you've memorized and all that, or even if you aren't with those, then I definitely recommend looking into tracing. And you can try that exercise I mentioned at the beginning as like an exercise to get better at this. Also make sure, once again, going back to tip number 1, focusing on accuracy over speed. Because, I mean, if you can kind of accurately trace the first time around, you're going to get faster anyway, so yeah, prioritize accuracy over speed for that. Be sure to keep that in mind too. Yeah, I also kind of did this for 4-blind as well, and I think it helped a lot with my wings, because 4-blind wings are kind of messed up. Okay, that's about it. Yeah, so if this ended up being a bit more of a ramble, let me know how you keep track of pieces, so other people can check out like what other people do to do that, and yeah, that's about it. See ya.